Xing Luo had a fever of 39 degrees. He drifted in and out of sleep and, upon waking up again, saw that it was already 10 p.m. He checked his temperature again, and it was still over 39 degrees. Struggling to sit up, he dressed himself, preparing to go downstairs to the pharmacy to buy some fever medicine. The medicine he had prepared was all at school, and there was nothing at home. He urgently needed to take some fever-reducing medicine. It had already been 3 hours, and if he didn't take something soon, he feared he might damage his brain by morning. When Xing Luo reached the living room, it was empty. Zhang Chuchu and the others were all in their own rooms. Xing Luo glanced out the window. Sure enough, it was still raining. Stepping into the rainy night, cold winds blew the rain sideways into his umbrella. Xing Luo tightened his clothes, lowered the umbrella, and pressed his lips together as he walked through the rain. After buying the medicine, Xing Luo stood by the roadside, waiting for the light to change. On this cold, rainy night, there were few pedestrians and even fewer vehicles. The sound of rain filled the night. Xing Luo's head was spinning so badly that even the road seemed to sway. He felt extremely cold, shivering uncontrollably. He shook his head vigorously, tightened his clothes, and prepared to cross the street. When the light turned green, Xing Luo, feeling weak, took unsteady steps forward, tightly gripping the bag and the umbrella. The world around him seemed to sway with each step, and every footfall felt like he was stepping into an abyss. Halfway across the street, his vision suddenly went black, and he collapsed to the ground. In his hazy state, he heard the sound of a horn, followed by the sound of footsteps mixed with the rain. Then, a familiar voice echoed faintly in his ears, as if drifting away and then coming closer. Where had he heard this voice before? Xing Luo was enveloped in a warm, strong embrace, shielding him from the cold and the rain. The next morning, the rain had washed the entire city clean. The air was fresh, and dewdrops clung to the green leaves, slowly sliding down. So warm. A breeze lifted the sheer curtains on the balcony. Xing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered as he slowly opened his eyes, seeing a beautifully ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling, a low-key yet elegant black bedspread, a comfortable large bed, and a well-lit balcony. None of this was his room. Xing Luo sat up abruptly, a bit flustered. Where was he? He remembered fainting while crossing the street, and after that, his memory was blank. He looked at the fever medicine on the table and the 4-needle in his hand, feeling utterly confused. Who had brought him here? Just as Xing Luo was racking his brain, the door to the room was gently pushed open. His nerves immediately tensed. The person outside carefully opened the door, and when they saw Xing Luo sitting up, they froze in surprise. "You're awake? By how?" Xing Luo was equally startled when he saw the person before him. Bai Hao, delighted, walked over and sat by the bed. "Yeah, you scared me to death last night. Your fever was up to 41 degrees. He reached out to feel Xing Luo's forehead, then compared it to his own and breathed a sigh of relief. "Thankfully, the fever has gone down, but you should check your temperature again later." "Was it you who brought me back?" Xing Luo asked, still a bit surprised. "No, it wasn't me." Bai Hao's starry eyes looked at him. "It was my brother. Last night, after dinner, my brother went to see a friend and asked me to come back first. When he was coming back, he saw you fainted and brought you home." At the time, Bai Hao had thought his stoic brother had finally opened up and brought someone home. "Why did you go out at night when you were sick? That was so dangerous." Bai Hao couldn't bear to think about what might have happened if his brother hadn't found Xing Luo. With tears in his eyes, Xing Luo expressed his gratitude. Thank you and your brother." He remembered fainting on the road as a child, only to wake up and find himself still there long after night had fallen. No problem, Bai Hao replied, laughing it off. "I'm just glad you're okay. Haha, but it seems like we're quite fated to meet again so soon." Fate truly works in mysterious ways. Later that evening, Bai Hao's brother returned home. Bai Hao was sitting with Xing Luo in the living room, watching a movie. Hearing footsteps, Xing Luo turned around first. As the two made eye contact, they both froze. Bai Hao also turned his head and excitedly called out, "Brother, you're back?" Come here, Xing Luo. Let me introduce you. This is my brother, Yongyi Qin. He's the one who carried you home last night. By how enthusiastically introduced the two, completely oblivious to the subtle tension between them. Brother, this is Su Xing Luo. Actually, the friend I gave a ride to yesterday was him. Isn't that a funny coincidence? Ha ha. Xing Luo silently looked at Yong Yiqin, who returned the gaze with equal detachment. Yong Yiqin raised an eyebrow slightly, looking at Xing Luo with a hint of amusement. Indeed, quite the coincidence. Xing Luo hadn't planned on spending the night here, but Bai Hao kept insisting, and Xing Luo couldn't refuse the warm hospitality. He also intended to thank Bai Hao's brother in person. However, he hadn't expected Bai Hao's brother to be Yong Yiqin. This was indeed such a coincidence that he had nothing to say. Yong Yiqin watched the changing expressions on Xing Luo's face with interest and took the initiative to extend his hand. Hello, I'm his brother, Yong Yiqin. With a forced smile, Xing Luo gently shook his hand. Hello, I'm Su Xing Luo. Thank you for bringing me back. Are you feeling better? Yong Yichin's eyes darkened. This question, hadn't Mr. Yong just asked him this morning? Xing Luo, feeling ashamed, lowered his head. I'm feeling better. Thank you for your concern. Brother, you must not have eaten since you came back so early. Aunt Wang just finished cooking, Bai Hao said cheerfully. Yong Yichin glanced at Bai Hao, replying indifferently, Come on, brother Xing Luo, let's go eat. Bai Hao enthusiastically pulled Xing Luo to his feet. At the dinner table, both Yong Yichin and Xing Luo ate quietly, while Bai Hao was the only one chattering away. Xing Luo kept his head down, not daring to look at Yong Yichin sitting across from him. Brother Xing Luo, drink more soup. This ginger and fish soup is something I found online. It's supposed to be good for people with a fever. Bai Hao, sitting beside Xing Luo, kept ladling soup into his bowl. Teach, thank you. Xing Luo looked at the fourth bowl of soup in front of him, wanting to refuse but not daring to. After all, it was a kind gesture. Yong Yichin frowned, clearly displeased. Bai Hao, haven't you learned that too much of a good thing can be harmful? How can he still eat after drinking so much soup? Oh, Bai Hao suddenly realized and looked at Xing Luo apologetically. I'm sorry, brother Xing Luo. I was just so eager for you to get better that I kept giving you more soup. Xing Luo quickly waved his hand. No, it's okay. I actually think the soup is quite good. He put down his hand, lowering his head slightly, his delicate fingers curling slightly. In truth, he didn't really like fish soup. Across the table, Yong Yichin inwardly scoffed at Xing Luo's attempts to be agreeable. Just eat your meal. I shouldn't have made you drink so much. If you like it, I'll have Aunt Wang make it again tomorrow, Bai Hao said. Xing Luo pursed his lips lightly. Okay. Later, when Xing Luo was preparing to take a bath, he stared at the bathtub, puzzled. He realized that the design of Bai Hao's home was different from his own, and he couldn't figure out how to get hot water. All he could get was cold water. After hesitating for a long time, he decided to go to Bai Hao's room to ask. But on the way to Bai Hao's room, Xing Luo encountered Yong Yichin. Seeing Yong Yichin standing in front of him, Xing Luo froze, lowering his head. Mr. Yong, what's wrong? Yong Yichin looked down at Xing Luo, whose head was lowered, revealing a few strands of unruly hair. Fidgeting with his pale fingers, Xing Luo stammered, I. Impatiently, Yong Yichin urged, speak up. Frightened, Xing Luo's hair trembled as his little heart raced, and he bit his lower lip nervously, his voice trembling. I don't know how to turn on the hot water. Yong Yichin was silent for a moment before saying, come here. And so Xing Luo followed Yong Yichin back to his room. Yong Yichin entered the bathroom, pressed a small button Xing Luo had overlooked, and hot steam immediately began to fill the room. I'm so stupid. Xing Luo silently berated himself. Yong Yichin turned around and looked at him in silence. Teach, thank you. Xing Luo quickly thanked him, staring down at his round, pink toes. But instead of leaving as Xing Luo had expected, Yong Yichin gently lifted Xing Luo's chin with his long, slender fingers. His cold, dark eyes gazed down at Xing Luo as he spoke in a low voice. Why did you leave the hospital so early? Weren't you supposed to stay there last night? Were you trying to get yourself killed by going out at night? His tone carried a trace of anger. He hated trouble, and yet, last night, he had stumbled upon the fainted Xing Luo. If it weren't for their slight connection, he would have preferred to ignore him altogether. I, I? Xing Luo was so frightened by Yong Yichin's demeanor that he couldn't form a coherent sentence. The bathtub continued to fill with hot water, steam enveloping the entire bathroom. Yong Yichin frowned. A grown man who couldn't even speak clearly. What a useless creature. He let go of Xing Luo's chin and, with a deep voice, said from above his head, "You're staying here until you're fully recovered. Or else you might go out again in the middle of the night looking for trouble." With that, he left the bathroom. After Yong Yichin left, Xing Luo leaned against the wall, his legs feeling weak, and tears instantly welled up in his eyes. His apricot eyes filled with crystalline tears, and his rosy lips trembled as he bit down on them, looking utterly pitiful. Yong Yichin's presence was truly terrifying, like a lion, the king of the jungle, while Xing Luo was nothing more than a frightened little rabbit, instinctively trembling in the face of the lion. The next morning, Xing Luo woke up at 6:30 a.m., but he didn't dare leave his room. Instead, he stayed quietly in bed until 7:30 when he heard Aunt Wang knocking on the door. "Mr. Su, are you awake? Do you want some breakfast?" Barefoot, Xing Luo hurried to open the door, his little hair tuft bouncing with his movements. He opened the door, his voice timid. "Good morning, Aunt Wang. I'm awake." Aunt Wang looked at the boy's round apricot eyes, dressed in soft pajamas, and was instantly charmed. This child was as endearing as her grandson, a person everyone would love. Smiling kindly, Aunt Wang said, "Since you're awake, come downstairs and have breakfast with us." "Okay." His hair tuft bobbed as he nodded. "I'll go wash up." Xing Luo rolled up the sleeves that were too long for him. Bai Hao had lent him the clothes, but they didn't fit as well since he wasn't as tall as Bai Hao. After hurriedly getting ready, Xing Luo rushed downstairs, afraid of keeping others waiting for breakfast. When Xing Luo arrived at the table, he only saw Yong Yichin elegantly sipping his porridge. Xing Luo sat down nervously, wondering where Bai Hao was. Aunt Wang brought out a bowl of porridge and seemed to read Xing Luo's mind. She explained, "Young master Bai can't get up early. He usually wakes up around 9 or 10 during holidays." Xing Luo accepted the bowl and thanked her. Aunt Wang returned to the kitchen, leaving only Yong Yichin and Xing Luo in the dining room. The two ate their breakfast in silence, the only sound being the clinking of their spoons against their bowls. Yong Yichin, sitting with perfect posture, wiped his mouth elegantly with a handkerchief and asked, "Did you still have a fever last night?" Xing Luo responded softly, "A slight fever." You should have another 4-drip this morning." Yong Yichin glanced at the 4-needle in Xing Luo's hand. The little hair tuft bobbed as Xing Luo nodded. Yong Yichin stood up and left for work, and only then did Xing Luo dare to relax. At lunch, Bai Hao noticed the winter melon and white fungus soup on the table and asked Aunt Wang, "Aunt Wang, why didn't you make ginger fish soup? Brother Xing Luo needs it." Aunt Wang smiled and replied, "The young master said that fever isn't cured by just one type of soup. We can switch it up to prevent Mr. Su from getting tired of it."